Hi everybody, Paul Hotchkin here with an informational video about kefir. What is kefir? Kefir is a probiotic drink. You can buy it at the grocery store. And what a probiotic is it's a drink that has the kind of bacteria in it that are good for your intestines and your digestive health and even your overall health. Kefir is different than yogurt in that yogurt has just a few bacteria of a particular kind, and it is fermented at a particular temperature. Kefir has many different bacteria and yeast, and together they make something called a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast called a SCOBY. A SCOBY is something that looks like this. Right here there are probably millions of bacteria and yeast that are all cooperating together to live in this colony, and the colony floats in milk. I have here many hundreds of kefir colonies, and these little lumps that you see in my spoon, each one of them is a colony containing millions of bacteria and yeast, all of which are floating in the milk. They ferment the milk, meaning they eat the sugars and they turn it into lactic acid and some other byproducts associated with the biological process of fermentation. Usually when you see a SCOBY such as kefir, it looks like this, but it is possible to dry the kefir, and when you do so, because the kefir is 90% water, it dries down to being something that is much smaller and completely dry. What's neat about this is a living SCOBY, it needs to eat every day. You need to give it new milk each day. But once it's in its dried form, it can live for 2 years without any food and will eventually come back to life when you put it back in milk. I have a bunch of the dried ones here, and I just keep these on my shelf and they'll stay for a good 2 years before I have to feed them again. Now, when you're dealing with kefir, they usually won't look nearly as clean and clear as this because they're going to have a residue of milk around them. So when you grab a kefir organism or a colony, it's going to look a lot more like that. And the way you can tell the difference between the milk and the SCOBY is the SCOBY isn't quite as white as the milk. The milk is chalky white, but the SCOBY is kind of off-white or slightly translucent. So to review, probiotics are drinks that contain bacteria that are good for your intestines. Kefir is a kind of probiotic drink. A symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast, the acronym of which is SCOBY, is what floats in milk and makes that probiotic drink, and sometimes we call the SCOBY kefir as well. Other people refer to it as a kefir grain because it kind of looks like a little grain. And you can dry kefir, and the kefir becomes smaller and crisp and a little bit more yellow. When it's dry, it doesn't need food. When it's hydrated, it needs food every day.